Code everything.
Alright guys, we are back in free code camp doing the intermediate weather project where we're basically going to take JSON data using the open weather map API and calling that to get our data and then getting our geolocation to essentially get our exact data. So what are we going to be doing here? So here we are in the open weather map. We're going to first go over the API documentation in case you're not familiar with this, because this is my first time using an API. We're going to be getting the data in a JSON format. So that stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So let's go ahead and move on to the API doc. So in this one we're going to get current weather data. So first thing you have to understand about API is the API call. So what happens with the API call? Essentially what's going on is in the URL, our query string here is going to let us, let me view it here. Oh, this one's showing an error because we don't have an API key in it. We'll show in a second. So this is gonna, you can search for a city by city name. You'll have to put the your API code on here on the end, and we'll talk about that in a second. Here we have by city ID. So every city has ID, so you can get the city ID info. The other example is longitude and latitude. So again, in this situation, we have to show our code for this to work, and then zip and etc, etc. And then you can get, this is all the data you'll get from inside of it. You'll get the coordinates, which contains the longitude and latitude, and then you'll get the system and all, so on and so forth. And these calls can vary in size and what they contain. So again, you'll have access to all of that, but I believe I only use the current weather data, so you can have 3 day, 16 day, so all this other API documentation. So the next thing that you need to do is, you'll notice that when we're trying to call this right here, it wouldn't work. So we had to use so it's like, oh, why isn't our thing working? So we have this app ID here, right, that's essentially attached on the end, and what's going on there is we need our API key to work. So in this case, everyone has an API key, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy this and put it in here. Normally you don't ever want to show your API key, but because I'll be resetting it after this video, it'll be alright. So you'll see right here our API open weather map. Let's go ahead and just pull this up like so. So you'll see, oh, it didn't work, but once we gave it our actual ID, you'll see that we're able to get all that data. Now this is the same data that we saw, but now same example data as right here. But you'll notice, because of this Chrome extension that I'm using, it formats it all nicely, and you know, the brackets make a lot more sense because there's a whole lot of stuff going on here. So in this case, we have a weather. That is an array that contains one object, and so if we wanted to access this, we'll show how to do that in the next thing. But this is how you're going to be able to do it. So you follow basically the URL, and you can make sure it's working by just doing it in your browser. So next, what we're going to do is open up CodePen.io, and we are going to be showcasing essentially how to call this API and also how to test it, because if you're new like me, you definitely need to test every step of the way and make sure that you're doing everything correctly. Alright guys, we just kind of showed how to get your URL correctly using your ID. So the next thing we're going to show is, let's make sure we're actually connecting properly to the API key. So we have to actually call it now in here. So first thing that I'm going to do is, I am a big fan of Jquery, so that's kind of going to be what we're going to do here. So we're going to just go ahead and make sure, if you're using CodePen.io like I am, you go ahead and add Jquery, save and close. And just because I'm a sucker for Bootstrap and CSS, we're going to go ahead and quickly add Bootstrap, save it and close. Okay, cool. So we're pretty much set. So how did I want to run this? So what I did was kind of a little bit fun. in the fact that I created a button that did some stuff. But I want to make this video a little shorter, so what we're going to do here is just some simple Jquery. So if you remember Jquery, we got to kind of get the document ready so that our code works. And what's going on in here is we're going to call a function, and then alright, I believe so. This is basically, if you forgot, this is how we kind of set everything up. Alright, so what did I do here? What I did was I created a string called var API just to set equal to what our string was going to be. Now if you don't remember what our code was, you can just go ahead and copy this over right here. So we've already tested it here and we know that it works, so we're just going to go ahead and create this API key. Don't forget semicolons, save it. What's going on here? Unexpected identifier. So var API. If that matters, I don't think it does. Alright, so var API. I'm not sure what this error is about. Oh, I'm missing a bracket. Oops. Okay. Now we should be good. Alright, sorry about that, guys. So we have our API. You'll notice that there is this app ID, and then this is our, if you're ever curious where you have to throw it in, this right here will be where you put your code. And the documentation goes over that, but that's really all you need to know. So the next thing is, how do you get the JSON data, which is this right here, into here, essentially. So a couple different ways you can do this. I did it in a get Json method, and what we pass in here is our URL. In this case, we just call it API, and then a function that takes a parameter. In my example, I call it data, and this is gonna run. And then within here, we can do a few things. So what do we want to? How do we want to display this? Well, we can simply do an alert, like so. And what do we want to put in the alert? If you go back to here, you can see right here that we have cord and then lawn. So what we can do is data dot cord dot data.cord.lawn. And you'll see right here, it's now, every time we save and refresh the page, it's now launching the alert. So if that's 145.77, cool. And now we can get it like this, lat. And you'll see 16.92 matching our lat. Now that's the hardest part. If you can understand how to get to here, this is essentially will tell you everything you need to know to start programming with the for loops and the if statements when it comes to the API. Now in the second half of this video, we're gonna go and show how to get your geolocation if you're not familiar with that. So in the next thing, in the next video, we'll show you how to get the geolocation using a Jquery method, and then what to do with those how to concatenate this so that you get your exact position. So I'll see you guys in the next video.